Today we're with Noah Sheedy. I'm excited to talk to you about a couple things because our whole point of this podcast was to just like talk about businesses in Tulsa, and the different types of businesses that people are doing, and to just share that with our audience. But one thing that kind of stuck out to me is, well, first of all, you do fencing, right? So all types of fence, or
Yes, if it has the word fence in it, I do it.
okay, and like do you do gates and all that stuff, right? Too. Okay, so how did you get into this?
So I worked for a company for about 2 summers. I was in high school. And then I got offered a job from another company as a crew lead. And it was a little bit of a raise, so obviously I took it. Well, it turns out that guy didn't know how to run a business very well. Mm-hmm. So we kept running into problems with customers having complaints. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the job, the fence looked great and this and that. But they just had problems with my boss. Mm-hmm. And I worked for him about 2 months. And then I had a customer come to me. It was like, okay, I'm having problems with your boss. We're not going to use you guys. Mm-hmm. He said, have you ever thought about starting your own fencing business? And I was 17, and I was like, no, not really. And he was, he was like, okay, well, give it some thought. And if you do, I'll be your first 3 months of work.
Oh, wow.
He's like, I have this pasture and another pasture to do. And that's basically how I started. And I think we ended up working for him for like 4 months.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know initially that's like the immediate, as business owners, we're always like, we don't want our team to leave to go create their own thing in as far as like to take our customers. But it sounds like to me that created itself for you because of the lack of customer service that that they were getting. So it wasn't going to work out for you. And sometimes that happens that way. And Oscar and I are huge like proponents of good customer service. Like we know that that's what's built our company, and you have to have that experience for the customer. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great the job looks if they didn't have the customer service expectation happening there. It can all fall apart. So
would you say that's one of the biggest things that kind of separates you from anybody else who does, in the fencing industry? Is that kind of what sets you apart from your competitors, you would say, or?
Yes. I actually had a guy a few months ago. He posted on Facebook, and there was like 80 comments. Mm-hmm. So I walked into the job not thinking I was going to get it. And I ended up getting it, and at the end of the job, it was kind of a customized fence. And I just asked him, I was like, what made us different? Mm-hmm. Like, out of the 80 people, why'd you choose me?
Right.
And he said customer service. He's like, you handled the quote all the way from the estimate, all the way from the finished job. You handled it. You updated me every day. Even if I can just walk outside and look at it, you gave me an update.
Yeah.
You gave me an update of what you're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's big stuff because, we were talking before we went live about our experience, me and Oscar's experience personally with like fencing companies. And
there's no communication.
There's no communication. We had multiple quotes. We actually came to know you through you doing our neighbor's fence. That it was both of our fence, I guess, right?
50-50. Yeah.
It was 50-50. We had to split the property, and they just came to us and said, hey, we're going to split this fence or our property. You want to pay half of it? And we were like, sure, whatever, and then that's how we ended up even knowing who you were. But you came out and you did a great job. And what I do admire about that too is that you drove by the property and saw that there was something you didn't like. Mm-hmm. And this was months later, right? Like, yeah. I think this was 5 months ago that you did the fence, or it had been a while.
It was in November, and this was, April. I think last month or something. Yes. when you messaged me.
He called us and called Oscar and said, hey, there's something I don't like about the fence. I want to come take it down and fix it on the barbed wire. And we were like, sure, but nobody does that, right? Like most of the time it's like, I've already got my paycheck. I've already got everything in the bank. Like, I'm done with those people. But that type of customer service is what gets you recurring business. So for us now, we're looking at like, okay, we have other projects to do. How can we include you in those projects? And so those little bitty steps are like a tremendous help.
Yeah,
in
I
growing your
appreciated
business.
the pride and the workmanship in it, and just driving by and not happy with something and messaging me and saying, "Hey, you mind if I stop by there and fix this?" I thought that was really cool because, like Cassie said, that in trades and things like that, that doesn't happen very often where somebody's like, you know what, I'm really not happy with how that ended up and I want to fix it. And that's something that will always help set you apart. Obviously you don't want to have to go back and redo
Exactly.
everything, but at the same time, if you're diligent and take a lot of pride in what you do, I mean, people will appreciate that too.
So one of the things that whenever I was talking to you, because for our property, as far as our fence goes, you've mostly talked to Oscar, and then I wrote the check to pay you and was like, wait, I'm Facebook friends with this guy. And, which happens to me all the time because I'm Facebook friends with everybody, I think. Imagine that. And then I started talking to you about the podcast, and I remember you saying something along the lines of like, I'm not sure if you would be interested in having me. I don't know if I've been in business long enough. I don't know if I'm old enough, all those things. So how old are you?
I'm 20.
20? And how long have you been doing this business now? For 3 years?
3 years.
So
Month.
that's amazing. Let me tell you, my kids will be so pissed if they hear this, but I've got 20-year-olds that.
I actually talked to Blake.
Blake?
He came out while I was building the fence or fixing the fence, and we talked for like an hour or so.
That surprises us none, especially with Blake. Blake, if you've talked to any of our kids at length, it's going to be Blake. He can talk to anybody. But like I said, doing business at 20 years old, listen, I'm 38 years old. And some days, and me and Oscar jumped into this 10 years ago, so I was 28, and some days I will look at him and say, who said we could do this? How are we doing this? Like, I would joke and say, who gave us the keys to this building, right? So you should be completely proud of yourself for holding a business and doing great work that you're doing at 20 years old. That's amazing. But what challenges do you think that has caused you? Has it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm young, so people see me as a kid. Customers to contractors to all over the board. And some obviously will try to take advantage of me. So I've had experience with that. So now I just look for it and I know how to handle everything about that. And then there's some customers that say, okay, you're young. You don't have any experience. Or do you even know what you're doing?
Yep.
So a lot of the time when I give an estimate, I kind of go over what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it and why I'm going to do it, to kind of give them that comfort. And I always offer to give references, even if it's if there's a picket fence, I'm going to give you a picket fence reference. I'm not going to go give you a different type of fence reference. And I have references all over the board. So it just kind of to comfort the customer a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine because we have like young technicians, and one of our sons is one of them. And I know that they don't always get the same. What respect, is that the right word? Maybe it's not.
Yeah,
I mean,
sometimes people question, obviously if it's a 20-year-old or 23-year-old, but what some people don't realize is that they've had the training, they've had the experience. We're not going to throw them on something that they haven't, done before. And I'm sure you do the same thing as far as like, obviously, if people question it, you're like, well, here's look what I've done. These are my references, and so on and so forth. So,
well, what we found too is that, and I'm sure it's the same in your industry. Like, there's a lot of ways to do the same thing. The way that you do a barbed wire fence may not be the same as someone that's been doing it for 30 years, or maybe it is. The way that Oscar would go in and diagnose an HVAC or furnace that's not working versus a way maybe the younger one is sometimes different because the technology has changed, And so that's not a bad thing. There's multiple ways to do the same thing and accomplish it as long as the end product is the same. And so we've had to have that conversation a few times of like, okay, yeah, maybe he is 20, but he still fixed it, right? He still knew what he was doing. He was still addressing it. And in our space, we're dealing with like a furnace. A furnace 30 years ago when Oscar started the industry was just basic, right? There wasn't as many communicating furnaces and all the things that we have now. So like there's furnaces now that they communicate with the outdoor unit and they do all these things. Well, that's just technology that's been around the last like 15 years or so. And it's really gotten popular in the last 5. So sometimes those younger guys may have more experience in that than Oscar would have, right?
Easy.
He's like, easy. No. He's going to get up to speed on it and understand it, but your age doesn't have to be what straps you down. But sometimes we totally get it. Like, it's just the perception. And then immediately, like I said, we have a 20-year-old and love them. But they're not running any businesses right now, right? So everyone's a little bit different. And I think at the end of the day, your work just speaks for itself. So what has been the biggest lesson that you've had to learn so far as a business owner?
I would have to say always set goals. And even if you set those goals, don't feel like you can't grow anymore. I mean, the whole month of March, probably I looked at probably a total of 30,000 feet of fence. That's a lot. But here I am in April, and I'm still advertising like I have 0 jobs in front of me.
Right.
It's kind of just like, even when you're somewhat busy, you need to act like you're slow.
Yep. And, we always say the perception is perception's reality, right? But like, you never know when it's all going to fall out, right? And then right now the conversation is, well, we're going into a silent recession, or we're going into this or that. And like, we just don't subscribe to that. Like, we obviously, yes, as business owners, Oscar and I are constantly making sure that we're thinking ahead for those things. But at the end of the day, we're not worried about it because we know that we are in control, right? And we are making good decisions, and we know that people still need heat and air and still need plumbing. And the truth is people still need fences, right? Because they're going to have their dogs out, or they're going to do this or that. And like, they're still going to make their decisions. And so the other thing I was going to say about that is we're all really guilty of what I liked that you said about just like be willing to keep growing and doing more. So we are guilty of like setting goals. So if you think about like a year ago thinking, okay, so this is where I want to be in a year, right? And then you surpass the goal maybe in 6 months. We don't always give ourselves the high five and be like, yay, we did it, right? You just already changed the goal. And so we never go back and say, oh, thank goodness we did that, or high five to ourselves or whatever. We just changed the goal. And so we're always chasing something new. And that's what entrepreneurs do, is we're like, okay, so I looked at 30,000 fence in February. Can I look at 90 in March? Yeah. Right? Or whatever, right? It's always the chase.
Well, that's the biggest reason, or maybe not the biggest, but one of the biggest reasons why entrepreneurs fail is because they get satisfied or content with where they're at, or, well, I'd have to hire more people if I accepted more business, or I would have to work harder. And the thing is that I feel like in business, you're either moving up or you're not moving. And it has to be that way year after year, because if you don't continue to keep moving forward and moving up, when you start to plateau, or you stay in a flat line, or even go down a little bit, somebody else is going to surpass you and take that business. And so I think it's very good what you said. You've got to continually hustle and grind on your business, and when you get more work than you can do, then you start hiring more people. Obviously you have to be smart about it, and you have to make a profit at what you're doing, and learn your number and all of that jazz. But the truth is that you've got to continually be hustling for your business, or else it will get to the point where it's like, I got me and 2 guys, and we've been that way for 4 years. Well, if you want to get to a place where you're bigger than you ever thought you could be, that only comes from grinding. And nobody will ever have the passion for your business more than you. Even though I have a lot of people that work for me, I would still say that me and Cassie have the most passion for our business more than anybody else. And it's
not
true
because they everyone who works for us still has the passion, right? Like we know they have the passion.
Yeah, I'm not saying
but
that.
At the end of the day, there is a different level of burden and accountability. And the supply house, when you go buy all the things, they're billing you, not your team, right? Yeah. And those are the things that maybe we misconstrue passion, because I think the passion's still there from everyone, but it's that burden that we wear that's different.
I think that's what always keeps me and Cassie, at least me, and I know her too, it always keeps us wanting to grow is not only for our team, but just that level of, I don't think you can ever be 100% satisfied as a business owner. I think you always have to be striving for more and setting those goals like you were talking about.
For sure. So what is one of your, how do you have a project that you won the job on and it was just like your most fun or favorite job, or something outside the box than you had normally gotten to do?
So I had a lady come to me, and a tree fell on her fence, and it was just a regular chain link fence, nothing special. Well, then I did the fence. She was amazed by how well everything went out, and she came to me about 2 weeks later and says, "Hey, I have another project for you." I was like, "Well, I already fixed all your fence. What did you need?" So I went to her house to give her an estimate. Well, she wants a cat cage, and I've never done that. She wanted it 8 foot tall, and obviously it has to have a roof because cats climb. And well, the cats will come out of the garage from like a doggy door, but there's an AC unit between the door and between where the cage will be. So then I have to create a tunnel.
So
yeah,
the air conditioning stays in.
Yeah, because I have a feeling the cat will mess up the air conditioner.
Yeah, that's fun. So did you do
awesome.
this project? Yeah,
yes.
That's awesome.
And it was stressful.
Are we talking like a house cat, or are we talking like a mountain lion cat?
So Cancun's, are you familiar with those?
I've been to Cancun several times. I get what you're saying. A bigger cat. Those great big cats. Yeah.
Okay, wait.
And they're actually worth a lot of money.
Is this property in Morris?
No.
Okay. We have a... Oh,
No,
I was wondering.
She already has a big enclosure.
Oh, yeah, she does. We have like a customer that I was like, wait a second. Yeah, she does.
Like big one.
I was like, is this going to be the same? So it's funny, though, that when you get into things, into the business, and then you start getting asked to do things that are just outside the box, and you're just like, this was not what I ever thought I'd be doing. And then here I am.
Yeah, I think being very uncomfortable makes you grow the most.
Absolutely.
I like that.
I
Yeah,
mean, like
that's true.
being on this is kind of uncomfortable, but
You don't seem nervous at all, man.
but it makes me grow.
It makes you grow for sure.
Yep.
And 100%, like you hit the nail on the head of like being uncomfortable. Growth comes from being uncomfortable always.
Yep.
And the biggest things that Oscar and I have learned through our business has been just because we put ourselves out there and been willing to grow. That's one of actually our core values at Quality, is to be willing to grow. Because if we're not always adapting and changing, then we're leaving ourselves behind. So, what are you looking forward to with your business? What's to come for 2024?
Well, I set a goal in 2023 or 24 January, and I set a goal to build 2 times the fence I did in 23. But it has to do with every type of fence. So if I installed 1,000 feet of picket fence, I have to do 2,000 feet of picket fence.
Nice.
So like your barbed wire fence, that's a lot of footage. And I could do a lot of barbed wire and reach the goal.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, did I reach as many customers as I wanted and stuff like that? So if I get as many types of fencing and double it, then I'll reach my goal.
Well, that's awesome. Well, hey, so we're really proud of you for stepping out. We know how hard business is, and we barely know you, but we know how hard business is. And I would like to just say that I'm super proud of you for being 20 years old and having the ambition and the goals that you have. And
Yeah,
I
think
think
it's amazing, man. You're
there's a
doing good.
lot of growth that's coming for you. And if you stick to the root of what you've said of customer service and providing a good experience, your growth is going to continue to come. And it's about time that some of these other people had some competition that's, a good experience. So anyways, we really appreciate you being on the podcast with us. And I would love to catch up with you in, 6 months to a year and just see how much more. I know you said you were nervous, and I think in 6 months to a year, you're just going to be in
Tear it up.
in an even better or different position. It all comes from putting yourself out there and trying new things. So
Exactly.
but anyways, well, thank you for being on the show,
we
and we'll
appreciate it.
catch up with you soon.
No problem.